talk about, we're going to spice things up. We've talked about Arsenal. We've talked about Lukaku. We are going to talk about one Paul Pogba. Man United absolutely smoked Leeds during the weekend. And, you know, you guys would know in live chat, the ones that follow me on a regular basis, that after Chelsea, I do like to watch a lot of Leeds. And I kind of thought Leeds will put up some sort of fight. Look, Leeds still played decent football. It's just defensively, they just got opened up unbelievably. And I think it is got to do a lot with Paul Pogba's passing, 4 assists. I'll go to you first up, RJ, on this one. Greame Souness, whether it be yesterday or day before, I can't really remember. I think it might have been yesterday. I'm convinced now that this guy actually dislikes Pogba. He literally downplayed Paul Pogba's 4 assists by saying that, well, that's what he's there for. Why are we celebrating this? I mean, he's paid to do that. He's meant. I don't know whether you watched the game, RJ. I watched the whole game. Scott, I'm not sure if you watched it as well. Like, I watched the whole thing. Yeah. Pogba's passing was immaculate. And you guys know, sometimes I'm a bit critical about Pogba as well. I sometimes feel like there's too much theatrics that happen outside of football and him and his attitude and whatnot. But I'm not one of those guys that if I see him play well, that I can't praise him. I definitely will praise someone like Paul Pogba because he looked immense. So, RJ, those 4 assists, all of those passes were just immaculate passes to either release Greenwood or to either release Bruno Fernandes. I mean, what's Greame Souness talking about?
It's a tough one because I try to be objective here, and I don't like just to jump on the noise just for the sake of it. But you just watch that game in isolation, and it's like what Matisse often says online. It's about praise in isolation, criticize in isolation. So if we're looking at this game in itself, not only is 4 assists astronomical as a stat in itself, but it's the nature of the assists as well. What I very much enjoy, apart from a great goal, is seeing a beautiful pass on way through the goal. And all of those passes demonstrated a different type of skill set, like that long pass he had for Greenwood for the second goal. That first touch he did to lob it over and put Fernandes in for the first goal. For Souness to come out and say, well, he's a £100 million player, he should be doing that. Yeah, okay, world-class players are doing that. But even if you're a world-class player, put it this way. If Messi does that, if Ronaldo does that, you would say that's a fantastic effort from one of the world's best players. So regardless if you think they should be doing it, you should be praising it because it was still an unbelievable display. So it's quite, when I read those comments and I was watching him, and I think these other panelists, I think it was Richards and Neville, who was a bit quiet.
Mika Richards, Neville was like sort of on Souness's side.
It was a bit weird to watch, actually. And I'm with you, and I know Scott's similar too, and I know he's a big France supporter. I think he gets a lot of justifiable constructive criticism, sometimes destructive, which is a bit unfair, but the constructive criticism is fair given he is someone where we've seen him be up here. Too many performances have been down here. And then you get pockets of performances that fluctuate too much. And the difference between world class and class is the consistency. And unfortunately, he hasn't achieved that more often than not. But when he's on, you got to praise it for what it is. And I think Souness, in this case, made himself look a little bit underwhelming. Let's call it politely.
Yeah, man. Scott, what do you think about those comments from Souness? I found that so strange. Pogba was a different level. I honestly, Kevin De Bruyne comes into my mind for someone who passes in that manner. But he was so graceful the way Pogba was just running that show. At a moment where Luke Ayling just banged in a goal to equalize as well, you thought maybe the tide was kind of turning. Pogba just out of nowhere just starts spraying these passes and literally just turned the game. So, yeah, what do you make out of those comments from Greame Souness?
Yeah, look, I think RJ hit the nail on the head, to be honest. But I think part of the reason Pogba draws that criticism, and, I think he's an absolutely classy player. I love Paul Pogba. But I think because he's such a character, your kind of attention gravitates to those guys who stand out and who are characters. And I think he's a little bit of a victim of some of that consistency that he's found, particularly early on in his Manchester United career. Now, though, I think he's in for a cracking season. I know it's only one game, but my word, they looked impressive. They looked really good and it was interesting. You kind of thought that other players would unlock Pogba to go and do more offensively, but it actually looked like Pogba was that catalyst to unlock Bruno Fernandes in that style. So it was interesting. There's been all this talk about how players need to unlock Pogba, but maybe where Pogba's at now is that he's that catalyst. He's the man that's going to make things happen and unlock others, because Bruno was sensational.
Yeah, he was different. He was different flavour that day.
I think Pogba was a big part of making him look sensational. So, yeah, good player, man. I wish we had him.
100%. I mean, I do want to... This is a very interesting comment from Marcus Rashford, because Micah Richards put out a very, very good argument on that day against Greame Souness, and Greame Souness, like a baby, just said, can we just move on? Can we move on to the next topic? I mean, let's talk about Liverpool and this and that and whatnot. Micah Richards said, you got Harry Kane, who's missing a game against City, and he's getting lauded as, you know, let's not be cruel to Harry Kane. He's a saint, da-di-da-di-da. He's an utter professional. You know, let's not say anything bad about Harry Kane. And then you got someone like Pogba, who literally put on a man-of-the-match performance, 4 assists, plays out of the world, yet there's no praise. There's only hate for this guy. I mean, do you believe... Like, I tend to agree what Marcus Rashford's saying here to a tad bit, because I've seen Sterling cop it as well. I've seen other, black players cop it as well. And I don't seem to completely understand this stigma at times. I mean, you know, I've talked about this recently about Rudiger and how Harry Maguire, he got jailed in Mykonos, didn't he? But his story is deemed to be as poor Harry, you know, let's give him all the love. Whereas Rudiger, I mean, gets absolutely bashed in the media when Frank Lampard got sacked and, you know, deemed as a bully and so on and so forth. What do you think about this one? Scott, I'll go to you first up and then I'll go to RJ.
Yeah, look, I don't know if it's about not liking black players. It's just hard to speak to. But one thing I can speak to is that they treat Harry Kane like an absolute saint. Look, he's relatively well behaved off the pitch, but the way he's carrying on now, regardless of who the player is, and it's like what I was saying before about Laka and Aubameyang, you're being paid by a club to play. You're being paid to go and represent your fans, represent your team. You're contracted. Like, we're all professional guys. If you've got a contract, you honor your contract. You do what you have to do. Yeah, but I think that the way that Kane's behaving at the moment is really poor, and he should be called out for it. I can understand if there was a gentleman's agreement between him and Daniel Levy, and Daniel Levy's gone back on that. I can understand him being upset. But maybe he needs to just come out and be honest about that and say, you know what, I'm going to play, but we had a gentleman's agreement. Daniel Levy's done this, and maybe get the fans to turn, because he has delivered for Spurs. But Spurs, on the other hand, have let him down too. But I think what he's doing right now, unprofessional, and he should be called out. Absolutely.
100%. 100%.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just to echo that point, I think it is a very sensitive matter to talk about some of the motivations behind why some players get criticised versus others. But first of all, what I would say is, you do see a lot of inconsistency. And I think that as a fan base, that's just like a general motif on life, isn't it? When you get treated one way and someone else gets treated a different way, we don't like that instability. We want that consistency. So if certain players are going to be criticised, just like refereeing decisions, when you see a VAR being used for one decision and not use the other thing, how come that one was given what, blah, blah, blah? We just want to see consistency in our criticisms, in our praise, etc. with Harry Kane specifically, I'm very much on Scott's side with this. I understand he might feel aggrieved because the club, in his eyes, and truth is a matter of perspective, okay? In his eyes, he feels he's been let down. But conversely, at this point in time, he's employed by the club. He has millions of fans that adore him for what he does. He's a talented professional footballer. He should let his football do the talking. There are other ways to express your grievances and not let down the people that have given you the platform to elevate yourself of who you've become today. Because it's those poor old Joe Blow ticket fans that are missing out seeing their hero. Do you think Levy and the board cares? They just went out and beat Manchester City, his future destination. So the show's going to go on. No player is bigger than a club. Messi just left. Barcelona's going to go on. Yeah. So Kane, whatever counsel he's getting is wrong. It's misdirected. And what we said with Mark Bosnich last week is that for his own credibility and his own legacy, there's better ways to handle this to make himself look better and still get the desired outcome. Because him not playing might kick up a storm and eventually they won't want to put up with that because of the bad chemistry and toxicity for the dressing room. But for his sake, it doesn't look good for him to break a relationship that he's spent so long fostering and nurturing with the Spurs faithful when he could have done it more amicably, kept the fans on side and still left the club and everybody's happy. You know what I mean? So the way he's gone about this is very unprofessional. With players like Paul Pogba, who continuously via his agent flirt with the prospect of leaving the club, at least while Paul Pogba is criticised of his character at times, the character that can't be questioned is the fact that he's at least handled himself a lot more professionally than Harry Kane on the field. And that speaks volumes to me. And that's where I think fans get annoyed. And Micah Richards made the very good comment about why does he get isolated and criticised, whereas Harry Kane gets conveniently ignored and sympathised with. So if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I'll leave it at that.
100. Well said. Corbina with a comment here, Kane has to honour his contract. City haven't made a bid yet. We'll talk about the Kane situation. But before we do that, nearly 170 people live right now. Smash the like button, get the likes up to well over 100. And check out the pinned message right now, guys. It's a Football Thing podcast YouTube channel. Link is literally there for you. 170 of you guys right now. Click that link and please go to that particular page, YouTube page, and subscribe straight away. You get to see a lot more of RJ and Scott over there. So please do me the favor and the boys the favor as well, and click that link and subscribe. Nearly 160 right now. So, all right, this is a good segue from